Hi, I'm Jason Gorber, and we're here to talk about the Sony WF-1000XM4. Yeah, not the most elegant of names for a product, but an incredibly elegant product nonetheless. These are Sony in-ear headphones, or earbuds, if you prefer. These are essentially their highest end of their consumer model of true wireless headphones. And I was very anxious to actually have a chance to actually listen to these. I've gone through a bunch of videos available here on the Best Buy site, reviewing a number of the sort of latest models of earphones. And I was very intrigued to actually hear sort of what the higher end model is. I was very pleased with the LinkBuds S. That I previously listened to, and I knew that a bunch of technology from this had trickled down. So I was kind of very interested in just seeing sort of what the higher end model actually gave, what benefits, if any. Now what's really interesting is, again, this is a premium product from Sony, and the packaging is relatively, let's call it pedestrian, straightforward, and I'm extremely happy. I'm only interested in sort of what's inside. The actual packaging experience, the sort of catharsis of opening it up like it's some sort of grail that you're uncovering is for me kind of ridiculous. Once you have the packaging, if it's too much, if it's too bulky, some of these come in big giant boxes, and then what do you do with a box? And it feels very wasteful. This feels very economical and very much to the point. It isn't hiding anything. Inside is just some terrific technology that you're about to go into, and I really appreciate that. I mean, it's tasteful. It's got a nice image of the earphone on the front. It's got the logo. You sort of rip open the paper, and inside is this weird sort of clamshell-y thing that kind of half opens. One side sort of this half, and in here is where the actual earbuds live. And inside here, pretty straightforward, is just instructions. 1, 2, 3. You pull it out, and inside here are elements of documentation. And inside the absolute bottom is, of course, a charging cable. And again, all cardboard, all nice and relatively environmentally friendly in this outside cardboard case, and then small and large ear pads. Now, before I go much further, we know a lot of these in-ear products have essentially rubber ear pads. These are actually a form of memory foam, so much more comfortable and actually sort of form a quite remarkable seal that does a really nice job of preventing outside noise from coming in and actually making the music a little bit better. So form and function together at last. Now again, let's talk about the sort of weirdness of it all. This is not to denigrate this manufacturer over any. It is nice that they've gone another way to make basically sustainable packaging, because the earphones themselves, of course, are anything but sustainable. These are battery-powered devices that at some point in time the battery's not going to work, and they won't continue to work. Unlike for generations, we had earphones that had cables. I can take stuff from the 40s or the 50s and plug it into devices now and have them still operational. That is not the case with wireless devices. That's just something to keep in mind. So it's nice wherever we can actually have sort of environmentally sustainable packaging, but let's not kid ourselves. The environmental impact of something like a pair of earphones is probably not necessarily offset by this. I simply point that out for those that are sort of amused by the by some of the messaging. That being said, I really do appreciate that they don't go overboard. They don't even make it worse by having big giant packaging. And I think Sony again is just highlighting the fact that they don't need to show off. They just need to have products that actually really work well, unlike other manufacturers that tend to spend almost as much time in making the packaging experience, sometimes more time making the package experience better than the actual engineering of the products. Nonetheless, here we go. Inside we get, normal charging case. Again, looks very straightforward. Nothing fancy. There's no bells, whistles, bling. It just looks like any other almost earphone case. The Sony logo on top is gold. That gives a sort of hint of the premium caliber of the drivers inside. And inside here, yeah, we have two little earbuds. They have this sort of a brass detail here, a little round element. It looks like one of the microphones is what I believe it is, but nonetheless it sort of highlights it. Color coded on the inside so you know which ear is which ear. This is touch sensitive. For controlling, you can actually fully program that in the app about what it does and what functionality. And again, each little side, this is it. This is it. This is just this tiny little driver. You put it in your ears, you have music, or podcast or whatever else you're listening to. When you want to charge, you can see that it goes in, if I put it the right way, it goes in the case. It's magnetically held. It's not coming out, even with a little bit of force. If I really slammed it, it would do it. But even with the case closed, you can see that case isn't opening accidentally at all. It's absolutely in there and held pretty tight, but still easy enough to open. Remember, for all of these devices, there's a battery inside the actual earbuds themselves, and of course a battery inside the charging case. You charge the case charges the earphones. So if you're on a trip, you simply put them in the case to actually give a bit of a recharge. Now, I've actually had the opportunity to take a couple long flights in this sort of new environment. Flights are sort of going on again. And so I had many hours that I actually had to experience these in the sort of most egregious environment possible. Jet noise, screaming children, the whole bit. And it's not necessarily what you would consider an audiophile conducive environment. But I gotta say, I really love these earbuds. They really do shine, and they shine in very specific ways. One, let's talk about something that I normally sort of dance around, which is the capability of the noise cancellation. Like with the Link Buds, I was extremely pleased with the noise cancellation. I'm somebody who's extremely cynical about noise cancellation in other devices because it changes the sound signature so much I actually find it fatiguing and kind of irritating. My reference in-ear monitors actually have sculpted in-ear silicone that actually essentially serve as like earmuffs to prevent outside noise going in, and that's what I've used for many years. These Sonys truly are the first devices that I've actively used active noise cancellation. I think their implementation is, for me, absolutely class leading. And on this device, you can tune it even more, have specific elements. When you're talking outside, for example, on the phone, the microphones are actually quite excellent for call quality, but it also has wind suppression. So even during your talk, it actually prevents when it's a really windy day. It does a pretty decent job of getting rid of all the extraneous noise and allowing you to hear the conversation, and the people you're speaking to also have that conversation. Of course, because it's built-in microphones, there's all kinds of other functionality. You can set it to work with whatever your virtual assistant is, but you can have it so that so when you are having a conversation with someone, it automatically engages an aware mode whereby you can continue having the conversation without taking your earbuds out of your ear. I found that worked pretty well. You can actually adjust the sensitivity. Sometimes if you coughed or sneezed or something like that, accidentally a little bit of a dry throat, it would actually engage, which was sometimes a little bit funny. You could just simply tap the earbud again and make it work without any problems. USB-C charging on the back, and just in terms of the bells and whistles, it has apps that work with iPhone and with Android devices, and it does everything that you expect for a pair of earbuds. Now, in terms of its functionality, it does have LDAC support, which is a higher resolution semi-proprietary format that Sony developed. It's a universal format, but it doesn't. Its universality is sort of restricted to Android devices. Apple is refusing at this point in time to incorporate it into the iPhone, just like aptX and all that stuff is, you need to have a Qualcomm device in order to actually have it. It gets a little bit confusing, but really what it is that you have base level Bluetooth, and if you want the higher resolution, the CD quality essentially, version of Bluetooth from streaming services or digital files that actually support that, you need to have the right device that is matched with the right element. For me, I use the Samsung S21, and that works pretty perfectly with these earphones. Actually, a little bit better even than the Link Buds. I know firmware updates are sort of conducive to making sure that all sort of behaves, but I really found that just the connectivity, the distance that I could go from my phone, if my phone was not with me the whole time, everything in terms of its Bluetooth implementation on these earphones was a little bit better. Now, how does this sound? That's the number one thing. If you're paying a little bit more, if it's a little bit of a premium, what do you get out of these? And you get fantastic sound, quite simply. You have very rich and powerful bass, but never bloated. You have appropriately tuned highs, nothing so shrill, but you can absolutely hear some of the more subtle elements of the music. And if anything, it's the mids that really, really shine on devices like this. I find a lot of earbuds, headphones in general, use a smiley face EQ curve. So you have a lot of treble and a lot of bass, and the mid-range sort of gets scooped out. So you lose, if you're listening to something like an acoustic guitar or sort of a tenor voice, a low female voice or a high male voice, or any French horn. I actually use You Can't Always Get What You Want by the Rolling Stones as a test song all the time, because it's right in that sort of sound frequency where I find things either sound too harsh and brittle or sort of too boomy and too bassy. And I was extremely, extremely pleased about how these devices handled even challenging music tracks. If you are strictly playing something that is full, doom metal or strictly electronic music, that kind of like a contemporary hip hop, you might find the bass a little bit overcranked on this. There are certain frequencies in the low end that are emphasized. But what's nice is the equalization on this through the app is actually quite powerful, and again does so without alleviating too much in the way of headroom, so that the volume can still be maximized. A lot of these EQs just basically cut the volume on those certain frequencies so everything gets quieter, which is a problem when you're maxed out on the volume on certain quiet tracks. So you can actually adjust it very much to your liking. There's many customization features in terms of the equalization that work that. Compared directly to other models that are sort of within the same family, you could hear a similar sound signature, but these really do what you would want them to do, which is everything that those other devices did, but a little bit better. Again, I was extremely, extremely pleased that even in challenging environments, I could still absolutely get a great sense of musicality. The spaciousness of the sound, the way that it actually handles complicated things like piano notes, solo piano, where you can actually hear the transients, the decay of cymbals, all of that stuff. But more importantly, the sound space that you actually get. These sort of more three-dimensional view, all the stuff that we tend to talk about when we talk about higher end stuff is in play with this device. You absolutely have a rock solid position if you're listening in mono. None of this sort of floating stuff that you get. You get exactly what you want with a mono track itself, or even a stereo where the vocals themselves are sort of dead center. You get this really nice sense of depth away from you, back and forth towards where the microphone was, and then the instrumentation on something that's recorded very well, you get a real beautiful sense of space, because you're basically hearing binaurally, you're hearing the actual way that the things are recorded, if they're recorded particularly well, in the way that the mastering engineers and the recording engineers actually intended you to, and of course the musicians. So for me, these have quickly become my go-to buds, as simple as that. They're extremely comfortable. They're not quite as form-fitting as some of the others from Sony. Like the Link Buds sort of felt in, and they were so light and so sort of directly in your ear. It was almost like wearing molded earplugs. These obviously stick out a little bit more because there's a little bit more heft to them, but the way that it actually behaves, it is not uncomfortable. Again, I've had these in my ear for hours and hours and hours, put them into the quick charge and had them in again, and I never felt my ear pinching. I never felt that they were loose or going to come out. It doesn't need anything like little webs or anything sort of fins on the side. They simply go in and they fit well. There is something in the app to actually tune whether or not you have the right size the ends, whether you need small, medium, or large. I found that worked well. It's basically checking for sound leakage. The mediums work perfectly fine for me. If there's one thing that I sort of think I would like to see implemented a little differently, I think that these I would like a little bit more battery life. I got a decent battery life, but again, it would be amazing for battery technology to improve so you can cram, 15, 20 hours into this form factor. We are not there yet. You're getting somewhere around 6 hours, especially with noise cancellation. Obviously, that is one of the challenges. I would have liked the case to be a little bit more let's say water resistant. Obviously with the open thing here, I'm worried about getting some schmutz there as it's coming in out of the pocket. Some other devices have a nice little flap on the bottom there. The earphones themselves do have a level water resistance. They're certainly not to be used in a very humid environment, but nonetheless, if they get a little bit of rain on them, you're not going to have a problem. Other than that, like I'm stretching here looking for negative things to say about it. They're not the cheapest in the world, but really these feel very much like you get what you pay for. And I think a lot of, if you actually compare earphones at this level, the sort of higher end of the consumer market, shall we say, basically the higher end of the true wireless, because once you get into crazy esoteric stuff, it really normally stops being actually wireless and sort of goes with a wired option, and then you can be spending a gazillion dollars on that. When you're looking at these, which are the sort of highest end of regular everyday commuter and listening earphones, above all, Sony has focused on the sound. Yes, there's functionality. Yes, it's important about its implementation. It all works the way that you would want it to. But really, it's clear that the engineers prioritize above all the effectiveness of its listening experience. If you have other devices, especially if you have Apple devices, you're slightly restricted on getting the most out of them. But even on those, I would absolutely consider, even on Apple devices, I would consider giving these a listen and actually giving them a shot. Because with standard Bluetooth, many people may be listening to music which is already very, very compressed, or even in critical listening, it does a pretty good job with AAC and other streaming services. If you have the opportunity to actually have LDAC, you really can hear a difference. You actually it sounds like I'm stretching here, but absolutely, you turn on and off LDAC, and you can fundamentally hear the difference, the openness, the musicality changes. Now, does this directly compare to a wired pair of headphones that are of similar caliber? The wired headphones are going to benefit from the internal DACs rather than the DACs, the digital audio converters that are built into here. So on certain devices, of course, wired headphones are going to benefit. But it is as close as I've had to reference earphones from a wireless solution that wasn't specifically turnkey. Just a buy it, connect it, and listen in the best possible environment, and I think that this is the way to go. So yeah, I'm extremely, extremely pleased to have been allowed the opportunity to have the WF-1000, WF-1000XM4. We need a better name for this. Nonetheless, to give these a shot, to give these a good, solid listen. I did want to wait and actually give them a real workout. I didn't want to sort of jump ahead. Sometimes you don't always get what you pay for. Sometimes, the benefits from these sort of lower end models are so subtle that it's not really worth considering. In this price range, it's very easy to get confused by the sort of constellation of choices. But I genuinely think if you do really fundamentally care about the audio quality, about actually listening to stuff on a more ongoing basis, about either being somewhere quiet and listening, but definitely if you're on the go, these are the way to go. As simple as that. I'm really, really pleased with these earphones, and I cannot wait to have many, many more hours listening to them. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Jason Gorber. Please subscribe to this channel. It would really help us out a lot. Let us know in the comments if you actually have a pair of these, and what you like about them, and maybe some other models that you actually compared or contrasted with. We would love to hear from you. Anyway, we'll see you next video. Thanks so much for watching. All the best.